From League Safe World Headquarters, it's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. With Paul Charchia, Matt Harrison, Christian Peterson, and Brian Johnson.
Welcome to Fantasy Football Almost Daily, video podcast version. Whether you are watching us or listening to us or both, we're glad you're here. I'm Paul Charchia, and my co-hosts today are Christian Peterson and Matt Harrison. Hello, guys.
Do you think
Hello,
people
Paul.
watch us and don't listen? Like they just keep the video,
video
up on
going.
the screen on mute?
Well, they're fascinated by our faces.
Closed captioning, you never know.
Well, yeah.
Oh, YouTube does have some really poor closed captioning that I highly suggest people watch.
Turn on
Yeah,
just for the humor of it.
it's pretty funny.
Yes.
It does not know how to handle Gronk.
No, I'm sure not. You're trying to say Ezekiel Elliott, and it thinks you're talking about Estonian hookers. That's possible.
That happens a lot.
That does happen a lot. This is a little bit of a different, it's a diversion for us. Normally we're breaking down news of the day and, there's this guy who did this yesterday, whatever, and breaking down players. This one's a little bit different because this is such a key time for leagues to reconsider or look at new ways to play and new rules. We want to talk about some of our favorite rules and the things that every league ought to be thinking about this time of year before ideally before it's draft day. And so you can have these discussions and get your league right. Every league ought to evolve. The Charch League, which has now been going for over 30 years, has a lot of different, has morphed dramatically in many, many different times. It's just healthy to look at your league's rules, your scoring system, and how you're doing business and finding ways to change things. I'm not a fan of, we've always done it this way, and damn it, that's our tradition.
Well, then you'd be playing in a touchdown-only league still,
yeah.
right?
Right. I mean, our first leagues were touchdown only. At the very, very beginning, it was touchdown only. Then pretty quickly, we got to 3 points
Bonuses,
for 100
right, yeah.
yards rushing and 100 yards receiving and 300 yards passing. It was a 3-point bonus.
Wow.
In the old days.
Because it was easy to score by hand.
'Cause I was
by looking
scoring
in the
by hand.
newspaper.
That's
Using
right.
the USA Today.
Yes, and I was using Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
And using the box scores. That's
I think
exactly
I used graph paper.
right. Graph paper. Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. You weren't even computerized.
No.
I like that. Although you're a machine now. I mean, just
Oh, yeah.
mentally a machine.
Oh, absolutely.
So now's the right time to square away your rules. And so let's talk about a few things. There's only one rule that I believe every single league should have, because mostly my feeling is play the way you want to play and play the way that's fun for your league. And if you got 12 teams that want to play this way, great, go have fun.
I think I
There's
know what
one
it
rule.
is.
What's that?
Blind bidding for free agents.
Free agent blind bidding. I will not play in a league without it, and nobody else should either. The concept of rewarding your worst teams and your worst owners
With
with
the top
priority
priority,
pickups is ridiculous. We've been banging the drum at this. Going back, Fanball Commissioner was the first product that allowed free agent blind bidding.
Yep.
Because we felt so strongly about it now over a decade ago. And so I think most people know what we're talking about, but the notion is that you give all of your owners a mythical budget, 100 units works great, that they have to spend throughout the regular season on transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And every week, when you want a free agent, you go bid on that guy. So if you decide Eli Rogers is a pickup that you want to make this week, you would bid 5 units on Eli Rogers, and the system will calculate who's got the high bid and award Eli Rogers to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
It brings all kinds of strategy in. It doesn't reward failure, and again, the strategy of trying to balance your budget and how much do I spend early, and week one becomes fascinating.
So this is into the nitty-gritty of this, but do you force everybody do you force pickups that happen after the blind bidding? Do those also cost $1, or do you let those happen for free?
Yeah, I like charging $1 so that every transaction's got some weight to it.
So that means, in theory, you could get to a point in the season if you blow $80 on the backup to your running back who blows out a knee in week 6. You might get to the point where you have $0 left and you can no longer pick up any players the rest of the year.
I think you're bringing this up because this is a deeply embarrassing moment, but that happened to me last year where I miscalculated my budget. And somewhere around week 14 of last year, I ran out of money, and it hurt me in the playoffs.
We like to deeply embarrass you.
Yes,
It's not that difficult.
No, it's shockingly easy actually. And I don't remember if I just rolled the dice that I wouldn't need another buck. I think
you did. I feel like you needed somebody so
desperately
desperately that you couldn't afford to even leave $1 on the table.
Right. Right, and it turned out that it bit me in the ass, so that can happen. So free agent blind bidding, now everybody supports it. You know, in the old days, you had to go to Fan Ball
ESPN,
Commissioner to do it.
Yahoo,
Now they all support.
There are
free agent blind bidding.
some commissioner services that don't do everything, so make sure before you're setting up your rules that you check how it works. ESPN does it a little bit different than MFL, does it a little bit different than Yahoo, so make sure that you know your commissioner service first before you come up with the rules too.
So just to dive down a little bit deeper on this, we set the free agent blind bidding waiver deadline at like Wednesday at noon, and so that processes, and then an hour later it's just first come first serve after that. So anybody who's dropped during that process or anybody else that went unclaimed, you can just go pick up for $1.
Yeah,
or 1 unit.
That's what we do in our Empire League.
All right, let's talk about tweaking your scoring system. First recommendation I have is if you're in a league with a 6-point passing touchdown, to bail on that junk pronto. And again, you can play however you want to play, but the 6-point touchdown pass, it just really turns your whole league is just into how did your quarterback do, and I'll tell you if you won or lost. And your whole draft, your whole first round is just it's the first 2 rounds are all quarterbacks. It's just it's so critically important to get positional equivalency in scoring.
Mm-hmm.
You want all of your positions to score reasonably similarly.
An average game for a quarterback should equal an average game for a running back or a wide receiver.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And that becomes especially important if you want to expand your flex options to super flex, another rule that we like, where you can start quarterback as a flex option.
Mm-hmm.
When you start the quarterback, it's critical that your quarterbacks don't outscore all the other positions. You want that super flex. You want to be really mulling over, do I start a second tight end or a third running back or a fourth receiver or a second quarterback, because they all score relatively similarly.
Yeah, you do have to be careful of the scoring system. Otherwise, it just turns into a mandatory two-quarterback league, which you don't want. And the idea behind Superflex, which a lot of my leagues have gone to and which I really like, is it makes quarterbacks important again. If you're in a 10-team or a 12-team league, there are 10 or 12 very good fantasy quarterbacks. So it puts you in a spot where...
But there are also 20.
Yeah. Well, that's what
Matthew Stafford's going off the board at like QB 18.
Right.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's certainly serviceable.
And with only having to start one, you're in a situation where everybody has a good quarterback. So if you lucked out and you drafted Marcus Mariota as your number 2 quarterback and he turns into a superstar this year, he's totally worthless to you because you can't trade him to anybody. Yeah, because nobody else needs a quarterback.
Nobody needs a quarterback. That's
yeah,
right.
so it fosters trading, and it just makes quarterbacks more important, which is kind of cool because it's easily the most important position in the NFL. So
right. So we endorse Superflex here, and we recommend that you try it, but it requires that your scoring system has positional equivalency. So go back and look at last year's scoring and the year before that, and look at how all of your players scored. Do you see quarterbacks are 12 of the top 17 spots? Then you need to make an adjustment. So now's the time.
You might need to get out the old abacus and actually figure out, if my quarterback scoring was this, how would he have scored this way? So if we make it 1 point for every 40 yards passing versus 1 point for every 25 yards passing, how does it change the scoring system? And you might need to go and look at a dozen box scores and make sure that you're not tweaking it too far the wrong way.
Get your bench spots correct. This is another thing I think a lot of leagues don't put enough thought into. How many bench spots should we have? And this becomes the overriding philosophy of your league. Are we a league that wants to reward drafters and the knowledge you have at the beginning of the year by letting people have deep benches so that you can stash guys, deep in, your 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th rounds? Or do you want to reward people more who are doing in-season adjustments and people that are there's actual talent on the waiver wire? Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of that. I think the draft already has lots and lots and lots of importance. I like rewarding owners who make savvy pickups in season. So I like short benches. I mean, for me, like 15 is a good number of players, so that you have actual people, the pulse that are available on the waiver wire.
Yeah, and another reason I like that is because it can force you to make it makes your decision, it makes it more difficult. So if you have a short bench and you're in a bye situation, you need to decide, okay, can I afford to drop this guy from
Yeah,
my,
can I
from my
drop my
bench who
Alfred Morris
I really
handcuff?
like? He's not playing yet, but I
Yes.
think he could win the job down the road. But I also need a guy to fill in for a bye this week. So it just makes it a little bit more interesting. Again, there's more strategy involved with your week-to-week management of your team.
Yeah. I just feel like that's a better test of who the great managers are in my league. By making them need to make 16 weeks of
Right.
meaningful adjustments rather than just show up at the draft really well, stash a bunch of guys, and just work your own roster.
And
There should be 3 prongs to a good fantasy player too: a good
Oh, no,
drafter,
yeah.
a good trader, and a good waiver wire worker. And you need to really force your league into doing all 3 of those
When you
things.
have a long bench, you lose
Yeah.
2 out of those 3. I
Exactly.
don't have to trade anymore because I've
Yep.
got talent on my own bench. I don't have to work the waiver wire anymore because I've got talent on my own bench. I don't like that.
Why not play draft and hold then, right?
Yeah, you are much closer to that.
Yep.
And let's face it, a league where some people might say, well, then it's too easy. If there's a lot of good players on the waiver wire, it's too easy for the lazy owners to just find good players. But I would look at it more of, you want a competitive league. You don't want the guys who are in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th place to just give up and stop paying attention in week 8
Right.
because
Yep.
they've gone 1-7. You want them to be able to improve their teams more easily so that they stay competitive.
That's right. What about instituting the auction? I think we're all fans of the auction here, for particularly for redraft leagues and for the first year of a dynasty league or an empire league.
I actually did this last year in my long-standing, I believe we're going into our 12th year this year. So we went 11 years with the draft, and or 10 years with the draft, and last year was our first auction. And it took me 2 or 3 years to convince some of the people who this is their only league
Right.
that I don't know if I can do the draft and the auction. The auction sounds much more complicated. I feel like I'm not ready for an auction, that kind of thing. But really, once we got everybody into it and they realized that it's not as crazy as you think, it's pretty calm, and everybody has a chance to be involved throughout the whole thing. It's not make your pick, go to the bathroom and grab a beer and a snack because you don't have another pick for 18 picks.
Yeah.
It's you're involved in every single aspect of every pick. It made everybody really into it, and it was a great success. And there were a lot of doubters, and we're not going back. I can tell you that. And I know that you've said before, once you go to an auction,
You don't go
they
back.
never go back.
Never go back. It's
Yeah.
a 99%, 99% acceptance rate on the
Yeah.
auction. You never go back. If you're in a league where people are reticent to auction and you're doing a draft this year, but you want to try to get that going, do a sample couple of throwouts during your draft that are non-binding, right?
Yeah.
So but just do a practice. Say, all right, just so you can see how the mechanics of this work. Let's throw out Adrian Peterson to everybody right now, and pretend that everybody's got a mythical $100, and pretend let's just pretend so you can see what it's like. What would you really pay for Adrian Peterson, and how would the bidding feel? And get let people. What is the phrase? Get their beak wet.
Wet their beak.
Wet their beak. You guys are big wet their beak fans. Let people wet their beak on the auction in a non-binding way.
Yeah.
And of course, the biggest advantage is now everybody has a crack at every player.
Yeah, you've got a favorite player. You really want Antonio Brown. If you're in a draft league, a snake draft, you can't get him unless you have a top 1 or 2 pick. Now you can go get him. Just pay $1 more for Antonio Brown than anybody else is willing to pay.
All right, playoff tiebreakers. Just a reminder: if you haven't set specific rules for what you're going to do in the event of a tie in your playoffs, do it now. In my league, which uses decimal scoring, we had a playoff tie, 144.1 to 144.1.
That's a tie.
That's a tie. And so, fortunately, we had tiebreaker listed. There actually ended up being controversy. I'm not going to dive too deep into the weeds, but there ended up being controversy with that as well, as it turned out, but due to a change of scoring. So we had team A won the tiebreaker, but then on
There was a
Thursday
scoring
the
change?
NFL changed one play, which was enough to change it so that
tiebreaker
Team
result?
B ended
Wow.
up winning the tiebreaker. So Team A that thought they had advanced on tiebreaker had got eliminated from the playoffs instead, and there were some hurt feelings.
Yeah.
There was some bitterness over that.
And I think we would all say it doesn't necessarily matter what that tiebreaker is. Just make sure that it's in the rules. so that you have it in there and everybody knows. There is no controversy.
What are your guys' favorite tiebreakers, and which ones should you avoid using? I don't like using your bench scoring.
No, you should never use
all.
bench because a couple of reasons. One, somebody who's like got a kickers and quarterbacks on their bench have got some automatic scoring there, and then the bye weeks just can wreck a bench, so it's totally arbitrary. It should only be confined to your starting lineup.
You know one that
So
I
what do you
actually
use?
like?
Yards
We use
or
I use
touchdowns
yards
or
for
total yards?
non-kicker, non-defense, total yards. Done.
One that's really simple, and I like, and maybe you guys don't like it, but I like that the higher seed wins in the tiebreaker. I
actually like it too. I know
I like
Charch
it too.
hates it.
It's like a home game kind of a thing. Like if you're going to be the lower seed and pull the upset, you got to beat them by 0.01 points.
Yeah,
That's all you got to do.
I want my games decided on the field, and that's I want it decided by the performances of my players.
Yeah.
I think that's legitimate, but you could use that. All right, last thing that I want to talk about for potential rule changes. Where you guys stand on penalties for losers. The bottom-ranked team, the team that finishes 12th out of 12 or 14 out of 14, do you like some kind of shaming ritual? I'll mention several that I know of. One league, the Matt Berry Tattoo League is very famous now.
Mm-hmm.
One league does, they force the loser to go take the ACT, and they publish the results. So you got to go sit there with all the high school seniors and go sit through the ACT, and then they send the results around. I know of a league. Our league 2 years ago tried to implement this, and then the last team quit, where you had to run the combine drills. Yeah. So you had to run the 40-yard dash, you had to do the cone drill, the shuttle drill, all that stuff, and then the last place team quit. So they never actually executed that.
I think that's the problem with it, right? If you have certain people in your league who aren't into public shaming, which there's probably a lot of those people.
What about this
myself included? They're just going to be like, all right, forget it. I'm out.
I'd rather
I'm not gonna get a tattoo. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, tattoos are absurd, I think. Another one I've seen that I kind of like, a customized pink license plate holder that says I lost at fantasy football. It's bright pink, and it's your license plate holder for the whole year.
That's not too bad. Yeah,
that's not bad. It's
terrible.
also public shaming. It's like that sandwich board thing that you'll periodically see people with.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about the idea of a relegation system, like how soccer does it, where if you're last place in your league, you get kicked out?
There's the famous Jimmy Kimmel football league where they have 13 members in a 12-team league, and the winner of the league gets to kick somebody out of the league for the following year at the draft. So everybody's got to prepare. You come to the draft, and they go, you're out. And one of the guys was telling a story on a podcast I listened to where they were saying they kicked out John Hamm from the league, and he was pissed and went home. So
that's pretty great.
Yeah, I like that idea quite a bit.
I think if your whole league's into it and you're not gonna put somebody in a position where they're gonna walk, then I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't want that license plate holder for a whole year on my car.
But that one's pretty harmless at the same time, right?
It's harmless.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something
unless
like that.
Unless you make a living in the industry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true.
Yeah. So it depends on your perspective, I guess. Yeah. All right, so you go. All things that you should be thinking about this time of year, ways to improve your league, and just be open to the concept of improving your league. You don't have to stand pat. You can change things up, evolve with the times. Now we have these online services do way more than they used to do, and a lot of times you just sort of get into the rut of the way you've always done business. But shake it up. All right, if you want to use LeagueSafe, and we think you should for the very first time, maybe you've never tried it, I will throw $10 into your league's pot. When you use the promo code Charch, click the radio microphone in the top right-hand. That's this way for you, the top right-hand corner. And you can...
Some pretty good point in there.
I don't want to brag.
You figured it all out.
Should be a weatherman.
Yeah, I really should be. Use the promo code Charch. I'll throw $10 into your pot if you're using LeagueSafe for the very first time. Also, if you're looking for another league to join, especially Empire Leagues, SafeLeagues.com has got leagues you can join and leagues that are drafting and auctioning, email drafting virtually every day. So live scoring. It's got redraft leagues. It's got Empire Leagues. Go to SafeLeagues.com for that. If you want to follow us right here, he's at Explosive Output.
That's true.
You are at Coolerheads29.
You got it.
And I am at Paul Charchian. We'll see you next time.